And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson, thank you for making us a part of your great day. Still fabulous weather around here.
Crazy. Too warm.
I mean, the weekend was fabulous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great time to live along the Wasatch Front. This fall, slightly on the warm side, but think about what we're complaining about.
Yeah, right. You're 10 degrees too warm. My T-shirts are lasting me too long this
I may have
fall.
to pull an Ajay and put on a long sleeve.
Yeah.
I mean, heaven forbid.
Yep.
Compared to, I don't know, growing up as a kid, Ben, do you have flashbacks? I know it's not Halloween yet, but do you have flashbacks like I do to some Halloweens where it's like, it's snowing outside?
Oh, I remember early October snowstorms where it's like, all the branches are going to break because none of the leaves have come off.
Yep.
And now the snow is here, and we've got this weird mixture of snow and leaves on the ground. That's horrible. So
That's pretty gross.
Absolutely. No, we've had 3 really nice seasons so far. We'll see if winter delivers late in the year. But we had a nice winter starting in January. It was pretty heavy. We had a very beautiful spring, if you remember, and summer's been great.
Far be it to me for me to complain about something we need. It was a little wet in the spring. It was a little rainy.
It was.
It was a lot rainy.
Which we haven't had a lot of rain in a while, which I welcomed. Anyways.
Anywho.
It's going to cool down this week. We're chilling out, finally.
Is that what's happening?
Yeah. I think it's today and tomorrow are mid-70s, and then it drops.
Because, my folks have tomatoes out there that they've planted with my children that I really need to follow the weather here because that would be
devastating.
And I've told you before that my wife and I both are the anti-green thumb. Like we can't keep anything alive.
I'm with you.
Anything alive.
Yeah.
Like it was what gave us second thoughts about having children for a second. Is because we couldn't even somebody got us a cactus or something there because we told them that we could not keep anything alive. And they got us. They're like, basically, you don't have to water this ever. And somehow we managed to not. So anyway, point being, I have something to prove in this department, and my kids really have embraced it with their grandparents. And so if I let that fail, it'd be the
last straw.
It'd be a pretty bad look for me.
Yeah. Well, make some salsa.
All right. Well, yeah, that's a great idea.
Fun.
I can mess that up too, easily.
All I did was blend the tomatoes. Is that all you do with salsa?
Dude, I don't know. All you have to do is follow recipes. I screw that up all the time.
Yeah.
It never tastes like it's supposed to taste.
It tastes different.
Like stuff with the simplest ingredients. Like this, 3 things, you just put it together and cook it. And it's like, why does this taste like not how grandma makes it?
I've learned 3 things in my life. 3 things in my life cooking. And we'll get off this quickly. First of all, use real butter. Spend $2 extra on your butter.
Wait, didn't they prove out that margarine is really bad for you?
Yeah, it's just oil.
Are you not supposed to use
just get
margarine
real
anymore? Isn't that a myth of the 80s?
Salted butter right. It is just oil. It's just pure oil.
Well, it's one of those things like when I point to people who study nutritional science and say, you don't know what you're talking about. Because the food pyramid. Wow, we're on the sides here. Sorry, but the food pyramid we learned as kids. Yeah, it's 1,000% wrong.
Not all that accurate.
Not even close.
So get real butter.
All right.
Every recipe basically calls for either, if not both, garlic and onions sautéed in the pan first to give everything actual flavor. And then, third, there's no such thing as garlic salt. That's not a thing. People have garlic salt in their house. It's not a thing. Have garlic powder, have onion powder, have actual salt. Garlic salt's not a thing. Don't ever use it. Those would be my 3 pieces of advice I'd ever give anyone.
You don't like fry sauce then? Use ketchup or mayonnaise. Don't use ketchup.
No, that's fine. I honestly, garlic salt's the one thing everyone's like, oh, it's salty and it's garlicky. Those are everyone's 2 favorite flavors. You get them separate. Your life will be better.
All right.
You will never see a recipe that says a teaspoon of garlic salt. It doesn't exist.
You know what? I avoid salting food to for the most part because people will salt it to taste. And there are a lot of people out there that'll just salt anything.
Before they taste it.
Before they even taste it. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't know. And going down the salt road doesn't seem to be great for your health if you eat a lot of salty food. So now that I have kids, it's like they're not going to notice one way or another. So I might as well not pour a ton of salt in this thing.
Don't get them used to it.
Yeah. That's my philosophy. Well, maybe that's why my food tastes so bad. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's salt.
Not enough garlic salt.
I should just dump that stuff on.
Yeah.
All right, so college football happened. Ben, you want to start with the good or the bad? Because I lean to starting with the good.
Okay. I'll follow you.
It's Monday. You know, people need like, hey, how you doing? BYU is undefeated. Ben, the Cougs rolled the Wildcats and are in command, really, of the race in the conference and honestly, they have like the best resume in the country. As far as going 6-0, you can't point at it and say, well, that is just smoke and mirrors. Because if you say BYU is just smoke and mirrors, you have to say that about pretty much every other team in the country. So, I mean, it's a pretty strong statement, I think, that BYU made over the weekend, Ben. And I have kind of a direction I want to steer things, but I'm curious to your overall thoughts on the Cougs as they stand now undefeated.
You just can't argue with what they can do. They have big-time defensive playmakers. Their defensive playmakers show up every game, whether it's pick sixes that set themselves up in the red zone. They just find ways to make huge plays where even if the defense allows the ball to move early, which you saw Arizona have some success doing, it's the same thing that Utah allowed them to do, and you thought, okay, well, maybe this game's going to have a similar outcome. And it doesn't at all because when BYU needs to capitalize or make a big play, they've done it basically every drive this year on both sides of the ball. And you just continue to see better and better play. This team has absolute faith in itself and belief in itself that it's as good as it is. And man, and we can get into a comparing two teams here locally. I really have to tip my cap to Aaron Roderick, for recognizing what weapons he has on offense and utilizing those weapons. It's like there's a real chemistry, a real synergy between the coach and the team. Like he knows what his guys can do, and he has an offense designed to maximize that, which watching a game Friday night and then watching this game Saturday afternoon is two totally different conversations. But before we get to that aspect of it, they're pushing all the right buttons. Jay Hill has been an absolute mastermind on the defensive side of the ball. Again, my only concern for BYU was how quickly does he get a head coaching job somewhere else, because he's so good. And by the way, if you go undefeated, which I look at their schedule and I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be undefeated going to the Big 12 title game, Jay Hill's going to get a lot of love. He's going to get a lot of attention. He's going to be in the conversation for Defensive Coordinator of the Year, and he deserves it.
Yeah, I think you're pretty right on the money. So we've talked about this before. You know, it's funny when the media inadvertently asks insulting questions to coaches. and one of those, and I think it's more complex, and there's a reason the media asks it, but one of those cliche questions that coaches get salty about automatically is, are you surprised with blank success? Mm-hmm. Are you surprised? That specific word. Are you surprised that you're good? Coaches will say, no, I'm not surprised. I'm the coach of the team.
Yeah.
I believe in these guys. I've always believed in them. And that's what you're going to get. Now, it's more nuanced than that because, of course, coaches know that there is no perfect team, mm-hmm. that they do have strengths and weaknesses. And it's not a bad question from the media, but it is like one of those like sneaky insulting questions by using the word surprised. But here's a mea culpa. I am surprised that BYU is 6-0 and rolling. I am surprised. Now, here's the thing where we have to be self-reflective here, Ben, is we have to look back. Surprise means I was wrong.
Yeah.
That's what surprise. Mm-hmm. Surprise means I was wrong. I was wrong about something. So I thought a productive way to go with the Cougars here is, why am I surprised? And I thought there are very specific reasons why I am surprised and where I was, yes, incorrect.
Okay.
I bought into the argument, and this is I think first and foremost the reason that BYU is 6-0. So I'll start with that. It's not, however, what I was most wrong about. Reason one, I could buy into that the defense was going to be better under Jay Hill year 2. I've seen better BYU defenses. I've seen it happen, and I've seen the reasons why they're better, and I could buy into that they're better. But to say that they were going to be lights out, best defense in the league, no, I would not have. I did not think that was going to be happen. I did not think they were going to be athletic enough on the outside. Well, if that game against Arizona proved anything, Ben, yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are. Yep.
Yeah, they totally are. I was wrong about that. They have a lights out, great defense that makes big plays and has ballers on the outside. In fact, ballers all over the field. They get pressure on the quarterback.
Yep.
The linebacker has been the story of the entire season. You know, probably the best player.
You mean the
out
position,
there.
or are you talking about Jack Kelly
I'm
specifically?
talking about Jack Kelly specifically.
Yeah.
And then, let's get into the secondary because we could heap praise, and we can get there if you want. But long story short, I was wrong about that. I could buy into that they'd be better, but that they'd be the best defense in the league, that surprises me. Good for them. Here's where I was most wrong. Retzlaff can make the throws. He can.
Yeah.
He made some really great throws. Now, I'm not saying he's Steve Young, who was at the game. There are throws he's missing. He is not the perfect quarterback, but man, he can really make some really great throws. He is not, and this is where I was most wrong, he is not just a help the run game guy, which is what I thought. That's what I thought going into the season, is that he was going to be help the run game guy, which he kind of is, but that is not the point.
He also is that.
He also is that.
Yeah, he's not just that.
He's not just that. He's not. And he's making passes where it makes you rewind on the DVR. It's like, I gotta see that. Call the spouse in from the other room. You've got to see this pass. Great stuff.
Yep.
I was totally wrong about that. 1,000%. And then I didn't think they'd be able to tape together a run game. And I'm not going to say they're balling out in the run game because it has been taped together. It has been totally taped together.
Yeah.
1,000%. So those three reasons, Ben, are why I'm surprised. And I'm happy to say, because I love seeing teams roll, I was definitely wrong about.
I will let you off the hook as far as the insulting question we ask, are you surprised, the coaches, they didn't know Jake Retzlaff was this good. Because if they knew Jake Retzlaff was this good, they would have named him the starter a month and a half before camp started. They had no idea he was this good. Good for him. He is better than everybody expected. If they knew he was going to be this good, they would have named him the guy the day camp opened and avoided all of that conversation. Because that was a headache for them too. And we know it was a headache because they got sick of answering the question. If Retzlaff was that good, they wouldn't have been at all worried about playing Southern Illinois. They didn't know he was that good yet. So to that point, they're a little surprised here as well. But I do think Kalani Sitake's vision of what this team is, what Jay Hill's vision of what this defense can be, have come to fruition. And then because Jake Retzlaff is so much better than anyone expected at this point, the offense is really clicking at a high level. So the offense is surprising. I don't think anyone would tell you the offense is anything less than surprising. But the defense makes sense because of the personnel that they have leading the defense, and that's both the head coach and the D coordinator, and that's what you got to do. And, where we have also been wrong is that we thought it would be a mistake to mimic what Utah does at BYU, and they've done exactly that.
Yeah, they have.
This is how Utah has dominated the Pac-12, won games historically for the last 20 years under Kyle Whittingham. Great defense. When they're at their best, they have a timely offense. But really, it's the defense makes these crazy plays, huge turnovers, sets the offense up for a lot of success, and it makes the game pretty easy. And that's what BYU's done. And then I will say BYU's probably been a little bit more explosive offensively than some of those better Utah teams in the last decade. It's just great. It's an awesome year for BYU. It's a magical year.
I would agree. I don't know if Utah ever dominated the Pac-12. That's an interesting word, but they were consistently good. I will give you that.
You win back-to-back Pac-12 titles, and I know one of them they fell back into. You won back-to-back. It's really hard to do. And they made, 4, 5 Pac-12 title games in 7 years, something like that. I mean, they kept going, and I know they lost a few of them, but they were really one of the high-level teams.
All right. I mean, Alabama dominated the
Sure.
SEC.
I'm not expecting BYU to be the top team in the Big 12 for the next 7 years.
Yeah. They have, Utah has rarely, and I'll just throw that on there, have receivers like Lassiter and Chase Roberts. I mean, I think that's a real difference maker with A-Rod, and maybe that's the difference in the head coach. We could explore that a little bit if you wanted to. But the fact, you made a good point earlier in the segment that they're willing to utilize the talent, throw it to the guys that are really good. Well, those two are really good on the outside, and then getting back to taping together the run game, when receivers, and this is basic geometry, when receivers are really good and you have to worry about them, Ben, those players, and I'm talking about outside receivers. I'm not talking about slot guys. I'm talking about Randy Moss on the outside or a player like that you have to pay attention to. Those players on the outside draw defenders to, Ben, the outside.
Yeah.
Now, those players on the outside are not tackling running backs. Where are those? On the inside. It makes it easier to tape it together.
Yep,
but you got to be willing to get out there and sling it and take advantage of that, and they do it. I mean, I couldn't be more impressed with BYU right now. And I am surprised. And I am willing to say I was wrong about a bunch of very key things that they deserve a lot of credit for making happen.
They deserve all the praise. No question about it. They have put together a magical season. And again, I look at the rest of the games on their schedule. They have Oklahoma State this weekend, who's terrible. Now, Oklahoma State's coming off a bye week. We'll see who they start at quarterback. UCF is terrible. Bye week. At Utah, it's a rivalry game. It's going to be tough. BYU is way better than Utah right now. Way better than Utah. And I know, again, at Rice-Eccles, it's going to be brutal. Both teams coming off a bye. It's probably the only game that really matters on Utah's schedule left, if we're being honest. It's the game that Utah's going to have circled that they want to ruin BYU's season. It's going to be the biggest game they play. Kansas is terrible. Arizona State's good, but not great. And Houston's bad. BYU is way better than everyone left on their schedule. So I think they should go undefeated. They have breathing room if they don't. I absolutely expect BYU to be in the Big 12 title game and probably be the favorite, assuming they're healthy.
Assuming they're healthy. I mean, it looks like the running game is only going to get more healthy. That's going to help. And then, as long as they keep that defense where it's at, razor sharp.
Yeah,
they're going to be in every game, and then if the offense can put it away, that's just gravy. It's the recipe.
They have depth. They have depth is a nice thing, too. So as long as there's one person who doesn't get hurt, which obviously is Retzlaff, they're going to be fine. And they should be in the Big 12 title game. And that should be the expectation. That's the hand they have dealt themselves. They have built this up to be this good, to give themselves breathing room over every other team in the Big 12, including having a tiebreaker advantage over Kansas State, who's one of the other one-loss teams that's competing. And you don't have to play Iowa State. So it's really all laid out there for BYU to do whatever they want the rest of the year. It's really impressive.
All right, stay tuned. We will get into the top 3 stories of the day, KSLSports.com, including, yes, the Utes. Falling on Friday to ASU. We'll get to that straight ahead. We've got hockey in the middle of the day today, Ben.
30 minutes.
And the UHC. What are we going to... Utah Hockey Club is such a mouthful, even though I really like it. But you can't just say...
The Clubbies.
You can't say hockey club.
No, the Clubbies.
I don't know if I'm on board with the Clubbies.
Yeah. That's where we're going. It's the direction we're taking it.
The Clubbies?
The Clubbies.
I think I'd be more enthused about the clubs, because that implies a club.
But that sounds like multiple clubs.
But
the clubs, how many? Which ones are we talking about?
Clubbies feels like the Cubbies' weird cousin.
Right. That's why people are calling it that. Because we know Cubbies. We know what that is. We know that refers to one team. You just throw an L in there. The Clubbies.
Well, that's another team entirely.
Okay, call the Utah Hockey Club. It just feels like... Fine, that won't solve your problem that you presented 5 seconds ago.
You got to come up with something good.
The Yeti.
Well, that's not the name of the team. I actually prefer Utah Hockey Club to Yeti, but it is it's a word salad.
Yeah.
Anyway, they play today at 11. So we'll talk about that coming up. Stay tuned. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Don't forget about Win Ticket Wednesday, your chance to win big every week. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win a pair of tickets to go see Iron Maiden at Delta Center on October 18th. Listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. Ben, time for the top 3 stories of the day, KSLSports.com. Brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers, 2 locations to serve you. One on Winchester Street across from Fashion Place Mall, the other at Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. All right, Christian, where are we starting today?
Number 1, Utah dropped their second straight game of the season, and they're out of the top 25.
Rightfully so. There's not a top 25 team right now. They have one of the worst offenses I've ever seen.
Ever? In the history of football?
In the history of that football program and what we've seen locally in our state,
we've seen some stinky
we have
offense.
seen some stinkers, and this is up there. And for now, I'm going to give Utah. I actually totally understand what happened against Arizona State with Cam Rising coming out, basically ripping his ankle off on the third play of the game, not being able to move or really play the rest of the game, and Utah saying, like, what do you want me to do? You want me to pull him out now after 3 plays? When everyone's been begging for Cam to come back, with the exception of the Southern Utah in the first half of the Baylor game, for a year and a half. I get why Utah felt like they couldn't pull him out of that game, even though clearly they should have, because he couldn't put any zip on the ball, and it wasn't just due to his hand. It's because that ankle was twisted completely backwards when he fell on it. I understand why you couldn't pull him out. It was such a quagmire to be in that situation in the first place. However, to not know what does work or what you can do from there was so strange to me. The play calling from there was so strange to me. Still having Cam drop out like he was going to be a pass catcher, and I get that they were just trying to set up the Wildcat, but it was a catastrophe for Utah, and the offense has been a catastrophe for a very long time.
Okay, but yeah, for decades. So, all right, Ben. Here, I'll start here. I disagree with one part of what you said right there, and I get what you said. I'm not coming at you, but absolutely not. I do not get why they played him. Still. Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. The guy couldn't throw a forward pass.
Yeah.
It cost him the game.
Yeah, big part of it.
I mean, couldn't make big plays. We just got done talking about BYU. He couldn't make little plays.
Right.
And I'm not going to blame it on the ankle either. I don't think that helped. I think you want to talk about zip, you want him to talk about whatever. He didn't have it. Absolutely not. I don't understand it in the slightest because I believe, and I should say I am certainly fallible, so I'm not, but I believe it was hubris.
Okay.
On both the part of Kyle Whittingham and Cam Rising. I think it was arrogance on both accounts. Listen, and this speaks to the fan base a little bit, but you cannot call a guy a softy cakes for weeks and that he's just sucking up money and come at the dude like that without it ruffling his feathers.
Of course.
And Kyle and I used to have another word for what we're talking about here, like calling somebody something Kyle Gunther and I did. We used to call him a Tom Jones, and we'd play that song, and it was pretty funny. So but I've been trying to think of other ways to call somebody this without offending anybody. And what do you think about the term, Ben? Let's see here, caitiff. CAITIFF, a contemptible or cowardly person.
Okay.
Caitiff.
I'm not sure I'm going to call. Who are you calling a coward?
Well, I think a lot of people were calling Cam Rising
a coward.
Caitiff.
Okay.
Or do we like this one? Cur. CUR, pronounced cur.
Okay.
A person who shows shameful lack of courage in the face of danger.
Okay.
And I did look that one up on the Urban Dictionary just to make sure it was not some sort of
slur.
Something else.
Okay.
Cur.
Okay.
So what do we like better, caitiff or cur?
Cur. It's a little easier to say.
You can't call a guy a cur for 3 weeks.
Or a year and a half.
Or a year and a half
Yeah.
and not have him be like, well, fine. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to do it then. Fine. I'm going to come back and I'm going to go win the game. And I'm sure he believed in himself and all of this stuff. He couldn't throw.
Yeah, at all.
And it's not his responsibility to pull himself from the game. However, I mean, at what point would he be like, he put Isaac in because he couldn't be worse? But I don't put that responsibility on him. Maybe saying he could play in the first place, I put a little responsibility there. But you know what? No, I'm not really putting that responsibility on him other than to say you can't call a guy a cur for so long and not expect him to, like, push it. You know what I mean? He couldn't play, and he played anyway. Now, the coach may have believed initially that he could have played. Now, blame it on the ankle or blame it on proven concept or whatever. He could not play. I said the same thing about Bronco Mendenhall when Riley Nelson had a broken back. He's doing his team a disservice by playing that guy. So, no, I don't understand that at all. And then what message do you send to Isaac Wilson? God, how bad must I be?
Yep.
And I asked Bardo before the season, and I was talking about not the emphasis on not turning it over. And I said, Bardo, are they ruining this guy already? They're well on their way. What message are they sending? Like, good heavens. He's losing the game out there, and you're not going to put me in at all? Even the announcers, which maybe were the worst I've ever heard, and I can't believe I'm saying that. They were just so awful. But they were like, I can't believe Cam Rising's playing.
Yeah, right.
I can't believe this guy's still playing.
No, I mean...
And no offense to him. He should never have been pressured into playing in the first place. And people should get off his dang back. If anything, that proves that, right?
Yes.
Like, a guy can't play.
If he's too hurt to play and the team is telling you they think they have a better chance to win with Isaac Wilson, maybe you should
and
believe
stop
him.
calling him a cur, because obviously he's not. He's not cowardly.
Now, here's the problem. Cam Rising is far from the only problem at Utah.
Oh, and that's another great point, Ben, and I'm sorry. I'll let you finish that. But, like, it does. This debate covers up
That the defense won't tackle?
a zillion other things, right?
That the defense hasn't been able to tackle all season? That the offensive line is giving up crazy pressures all season long? And we saw it in the very first game of the season when they played against Southern Utah, and we thought, Cam's taking a lot of hits for a guy who can't take hits this year. In a game against Southern Utah, who the coach came on our show and said, well, guys, I know we're playing on Thursday. That's why our season starts on Friday. And they were getting to Cam not regularly, but enough that you thought, this young offensive line better figure it out, including two basically freshman tackles. And they haven't. So Cam's still getting pressured a lot. Utah cannot stop the run specifically, which is really strange. That's a new wrinkle for Utah that we haven't seen in a long time.
I think Scatterbo's really good, though.
Okay, what were Arizona's running backs doing last week then?
Not as good as him. I mean, he's like
He is
I'm
good.
not saying that you're wrong because I don't think you are, and I don't. But you got to give Scatterbo, like, you got to give Dilly his due that he's a passing guy, and he realizes he has a special player, and so he highlights that player. I mean, but Scatterbo is special, right?
He is special.
I mean,
He's
over
good.
the shoulder catch on fourth down or whatever. I mean, that won the game.
He's very good.
He's special. We'd be doing him a disservice by not bringing that up. But yeah, I get your point.
Kedrick Riscano last week for Arizona averaged 10 yards a carry on 7 carries. Like everyone's gashing Utah. So of course Cam's going to go off for a ton. Yeah, of course he's going to. He's good. He's a really good player, and he's going to take advantage of Utah. They are not in a spot right now to be able to stop opposing teams that can run the ball. So when you run into somebody as talented as Scatterbo, you're really going to be in trouble, and Utah is. So yes, there are a lot of issues at Utah. We don't have enough time to talk about them all in this top 3 stories, but we will get to them.
But don't pull the guy who can't play. I mean,
I'm very curious to see what Whit says today at 11:30 if we're playing it on the show, if we can get it, because we may not see Cam again.
I don't know if he continues to heal. I mean, if you listen to Whit last week, I don't think they'll permanently go away from him.
I'm really
and
curious
I don't
what
know.
his ankle,
I don't like
what the condition of his ankle is.
Maybe, yeah. I don't think the right move would be to permanently go away from him. I think the right move would be, let him get healthy to the point where he can contribute to winning games.
If he's close.
Yeah.
If this is what his fingers are going to be like all season, you can't play him.
Come back for an 8th year.
Yeah.
Next.
Number 2, the Utah Hockey Club is giving us some matinee hockey action today at 11.
So people may ask why they're playing this. First of all, it is Columbus Day in the United States, or Indigenous Peoples Day. It's also Thanksgiving in Canada. So all of Canada has the day off, and obviously the NHL is huge in Canada, so you get some exposure there, which is really cool. So, yes, they are playing coming up in 20 minutes, 11 o'clock, against the New Jersey Devils.
The red hot Utah Hockey Club.
Best team in hockey right now.
The Clubs.
I have the Clubbies. I appreciate you saying that. I, of course, everyone has watched every game so far. You know what they look like to me? They look like a dog that was taken to the shelter and has found a permanent home and has the zoomies running around the house, just excited and friendly and happy to be out and free, finally. They are playing with so much joy. It's so fun to watch this team right now because all these young guys like each other. All these young guys like wearing Utah on the front of their sweaters. They are playing really hard. They don't get their heads down. They will fall behind. They'll come back. They'll go to overtime. They'll give up late goals. They'll give up crazy goals. Like if you saw the one that bounced off the side at MSG and went right into the net when Connor Ingram was behind the net. I didn't know that happened in hockey. Apparently it does. It's not that uncommon. But they just don't stop believing in themselves. It's really an exciting brand of hockey. Yes, the defense needs to get better because you can't give up 5 goals and expect to win a whole lot. But they're scoring 6 when they give up 5. So they're playing really, really an exciting brand of hockey right now. And you know what I got to say? Something I did not recognize because I don't pretend I watched a ton of hockey before this, certainly the NHL. I didn't realize the skill level of the players is so high. If you make a mistake defensively, the puck's going in the back of the net. And that's what you saw with the overtime winner at MSG on Saturday night. They're in overtime, so it's 4-on-4, only 3 skaters on the ice plus your goaltender. The 2 defenders closest to Clayton Keller turned their back to him, and it was fatal. I mean, the second you do that, he's going to backhand it up into the top of the net, and he did. But it's very cool to watch how good these players are, how much fun they're having. And then I will just say, even though I know we're supposed to be impartial, it's just cool to see Utah in the front of the sweater. It's cool that this is our team locally playing this well, and they've already got those 3 wins, and you can't take those away from them.
No, it's really exciting. And you're right. I think it's comparable to seeing professional golf in that way, where it's like, oh, you're not supposed to be able to hit shots like that. And yeah, like most professional sports, the slightest mistake, this is really what separates things from college or the level down, right? You can make mistakes, not necessarily pay for it, until the film room or whatever the next week. But in professional sports, you'll get embarrassed if you make a mistake because they're that good. They can do those sorts of things. And I think what's most important for the clubs is they're scoring a lot of goals.
Which clubs?
Well, the Utah Hockey Club.
The Clubbies.
The clubs.
You must be talking about the Clubbies.
The clubs are really scoring a lot of goals.
They are. It's fun.
Which makes it exciting, which does matter when you're really trying to get the buzz around the franchise. So I think, Ryan Smith this morning with DJ and PK tempered expectations. I know they're really trying to do that over there, and I get why. But getting off to an exciting start, I doubt they're complaining.
I think Thursday I was saying it was amazing how well Dylan Guenther was playing, and maybe was having the start a lot of us expected Clayton Keller to have, because Clayton Keller's the star of the team. Since then, Clayton Keller is now tied for the points leaders in the NHL. He's got 6 points. Dylan Guenther is the goals leader. He's got 5 goals in 3 games. He's scored in every game, including twice in 2 games. And Logan Cooley is tied for the leader in assists. So the 3 kind of young faces of the team are all playing exceptionally well. And that's another part of this excitement is not only are they playing well and, taking advantage of some mistakes other teams are making, it's the guys you want to be playing well that are going to be here for a long time making those plays to help them win games. So really, really exciting, and I'm happy this game's going to be on coming up in about 15 minutes.
Man, I need to log on to the Thesaurus more. Can really find some interesting stuff. Trying to find a good word for how they're playing. Madcap? Are you saying they're playing madcap?
They're madcap? Is that a thing?
Madcap out there?
Okay.
It's another word for courageous.
Okay. This sounds really authentic when you say these words.
Heedless?
Yeah.
Very heedless.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Number 3, a shorthanded Jazz dropped their first game of the preseason, and they return to action tomorrow night.
The bad news is Keontae George has a knee injury already. It sounds like it's not that serious. His grandmother tweeted out that he was running up the American Airlines stairs. But in the next game, and man, this is the injury you don't want to see in basketball. Well, it's maybe the number 2 injury you don't want to see in Achilles, but hamstring strain for Isaiah Collier. Hamstrings just last forever. You got to be so careful with hamstrings. And the Jazz guard depth is terrible. You have Keontae George, you have Jordan Clarkson, and you have Colin Sexton, that's only 3 guys. You probably need to have at least 4 and maybe 5. That's why Bryce Sensabaugh has been getting some point guard minutes already or some backcourt minutes. The Jazz just don't have a lot of depth, and they don't want to play Patty Mills. Patty Mills doesn't want to play.
No, that's not why he's here.
No, he's here to coach. He's here to be the highest paid assistant coach in the NBA.
Yeah. It's interesting, those two juxtaposed with Collier, and I'll make somewhat of a tongue-in-cheek joke with both. But with Keontae George, they should just shut him down for the year.
Don't need him.
Whatever. Like, don't worry about it. Like, make sure you're 1,000%. We're not going to mess with it. We honestly don't care that much. Take as much time as you need. Collier, still battling to make the league. You send him down to the Stars, and you make him grind every practice.
Get that hamstring back. No,
I'm kidding about that.
Yeah.
But honestly, Collier has a lot to prove. If he is sidelined for a long period of time, that really could damage him, because he does need to prove that he's got the skill set to make the NBA. I'm not saying to ever push an injury. I'm just making jokes. But he does have something that he needs to prove. So I'm sure he's eager to get out on the floor. I know that Keontae George does have something to prove, but way less, in my opinion. And health should be at a premium for him. Jazz
are going to be extremely cautious with injuries this year. They don't have a lot of places they can suffer even one injury, much less 2 stacked, like the point guard position with Keontae and Isaiah Collier right now. Maybe in the front court, because you have Walker Kessler and John Collins, and Taylor Hendricks can play some 4, and you've got Drew Eubanks. Like, you've got some, you could play Kyle Filipowski. You have some depth there.
Ben, Hot Dog was playing point guard forever. I mean, listen, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But they just don't
They
have
had Kenneth Lofton playing point guard last year.
Right. But if you're afraid of the Jazz accidentally winning too many games and pulling themselves out of the high lottery situation, this is how they do it.
Let Kenny cook.
They're going to have one injury. It's going to rob them of depth at the entire position, and they're really going to be bad there. And that's where they are right now. They were already shallow without Keontae George. Missing 2 guys would make the start of the season really difficult.
Where did Hot Dog land? With the Lakers?
Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Went home.
Chicago.
I doubt he makes the roster. But we'll see. I haven't seen how he's been playing.
All right, stay tuned. We'll have more coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best college football coverage in Utah is on the KSL Sports Zone. Ready? The Utes return home to the Hill to take on an old familiar foe in TCU. Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I want to remind you to nominate the youth sports volunteer you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union.
Pretty fascinating to hear how distraught Whit was in that Utes at 50 update we just played. Like he said, same story, and I think that's what's frustrating is they didn't get beat twice by Arizona. They just got beat twice, period. I mean, pretty handily by 2 teams that I think Utah strongly believes they should have beaten. But as we've talked about, so much has been hung on, and it's kind of been our big complaint for the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks is it can't all be Isaac Wilson's fault. Everything can't ride on his shoulders because he will take that to heart, and it's not accurate.
Yeah.
Isaac Wilson is not the only reason Utah's losing these games because this is a substandard Utah defense right now.
It is. And you start off by saying this may be the worst offense you've seen from Utah, and that may or may not be true. But I think what you can read into Whit's comments there is that the defense is part of the reason they're losing. Having covered the team when a lot of those terrible offenses at the beginning of the Pac-12 were there and the defense was still good, you never heard Whit, and I shouldn't say never because, I mean, I don't remember every press conference, 100%. But to my memory, I don't remember him ever sounding distraught because he'd be like, well, the defense is fine. And yeah, the offense stinks, but my identity is the defense. You hear him so distraught, he's like offended that the tackling is so bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's offended that the defense is part of the reason that they're losing games. And It's just a funny observation. Like, it's almost like he can justify, well, like, yeah, my offenses always stink. What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm used to my offense letting me down all the time.
Here's Utah's.
But he's so personally wrapped up in the defense. I think that's why he's so upset.
Absolutely.
He's lost games in his career before.
Of course, and he's lost games because of the offense.
And not sounded like that.
Here's Utah's offense against P4 opponents this year, so taking out SUU and taking out Utah State, and Utah State's defense is obviously abysmal. Did you see the over-under in their next game, Utah State's next game?
No.
The total points? 78.5 points.
Good times.
They're just expecting it to be a shootout where they play New Mexico.
Yeah, Bronco.
So all points. But anyways, against Baylor, Oklahoma State, Arizona, ASU, here are Utah's point totals. 23, 22, 10, 19. They have not scored more than 23 points against a P4 opponent this year. Atrocious. That's
offense. Not great. I agree.
Yeah. So I get the frustration with the offensive side. I actually am willing to give Andy Ludwig some leeway because he went into the year expecting to have Cam, got Isaac midway, you're 3 games in, 2.5 games in, a game and a half in, and now is trying to play with a Cam Rising who can't throw the ball down the field. So he doesn't know what his pieces are, and maybe that is on him. Maybe it's not. I'll give him a little bit of a slide until they figure out who their quarterback's going to be. But the defensive side of the ball underperforming as badly as it has been more surprising.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just think I'm not letting Andy off the hook either. That's what you got to do. That's the job. Cam Rising is out indefinitely. That's what we're getting. Breaking news coming from Christian. So they are putting that out there right before the press conference, I'm guessing, that news coming out. All right. So Cam Rising out indefinitely. Not a surprise. I don't think he was ready to come back.
The ankle, the fingers, it's a disaster. It's been a disastrous season. It's been a disastrous 2 seasons. And you know what? I have a lot of sympathy for Utah fans. You are in the injury business, but this has been particularly painful.
Stay tuned. The coach, Tim LaComb, is going to join the show. Coming up next, we'll talk a little Utah Jazz basketball. Stay tuned. By the way, this segment has been brought to you by our friends at Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255. Peach Doors and Windows. Also, just for fun, 1st and 12 Sunday from 10 to noon, brought to you by Macy's Grocery Store. Get the freshest fruits and vegetables from local farms and your favorite local brands. Macy's, happy shopping. It's a great way to wrap up your college football week, by the way, with Alex and Mitch.
I thought you were talking about fresh fruits and vegetables. And I thought,
that's also good.
Hell yeah, man.
Stay tuned. More next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best college football coverage in Utah is on the KSL Sports Zone. Ready? The Aggies welcome in Bronco Mendenhall as the New Mexico Lobos invade Logan. Catch all the play-by-play action on your radio home of the Aggies. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. If you're just joining us, breaking news, Cam Rising is out indefinitely. Utah announced at their press conference today.
Led with it right off the bat.
Yep. I want to remind you about the BYU preview show in Chubby's. Join at Chubby's? Join Hanson Scotty Wednesday from noon to 3 at Chubby's Cafe in Orem, 1087 South, 750 East. Come taste for yourself what sets Chubby's apart from the rest. Joining us now, he is my co-host for Jazz Pre, Half, and Post, former BYU assistant coach, our friend Tim LaComb. What's going on, Coach?
Hey, Chubby.
Well, hey, love Chubby's and the whole thing, but that's kind of a harsh lead-in for a guy like me that's a little self-conscious.
It's my fault.
What do you weigh, 150
it's basically
pounds?
you and Ben are saying, you and Ben, hey, let's get him with the Chubby thing. Yeah, I feel it.
What are you talking about? You're like one of the thinnest guys
You
I
are.
know.
You're a rail.
Okay.
All right.
How are you guys, man?
I haven't talked to you in a long time, Coach, other than a couple of texts that we send every couple of weeks, but yeah.
Yeah, we stay in touch via technology, but I'm with you, man. I'm jonesing to have a basketball conversation.
I've been excited to watch this team so far this year. I think they've been fun to watch. And, of course, the injuries to Keontae George and Isaiah Collier take some wind out of the sails for the Jazz. But even, 17 points from Cody Williams, mostly on made threes, but I thought that was a promising sign from the lottery pick.
I really do agree with you, Ben. I don't know if it's good that we're bullish on a team that that everybody in town doesn't want to be very good this year. But I will just, in comparison to last year, really night and day. I think, for a couple different reasons. I think the roles have been defined, very, very early. And the fact that they're going to lean into the young guys, and there's a whole lot of those guys, is definitely a statement that, the rebuild is still in full bloom. But to me, it's really exciting to see the steps that these guys have taken individually. I just think every guy to a man has improved in areas they needed to, and then to sit and watch them and the chemistry that seems to exist right now, pretty exciting for the long run.
I thought the messaging at Media Day was really interesting because, I've sat through Media Days before when the team kind of comes out and says, well, we still believe in this squad and we think we're this and that, and it isn't necessarily true, but that's the message they sell, and I understand that. It was way different. It was all about the young guys. I mean, I almost did a stopwatch with Will Hardy's comments where I would say, Ben, like over half of them, the whole availability was about playing the young players. Yeah. Like 70% of it was all about we're going to go young, we're going to develop, and this and that. I thought it was really interesting that they kind of pulled off the veneer and are like, yeah, this is the priority.
And I'm really, I for one am really happy they did, because I think it lends itself to what we're seeing. I think before, everybody's trying to navigate and negotiate their own careers, and then the team on top of that. Last year, there were a few veterans that, at times could really get hot, but at times, really kind of took the wind out of the sails of the team. And so I think it's really great that they're leaning into this youth movement. And then, the guys who are along for the ride will find their spot and find their role. But I thought it was a genius move to just kind of put it out there and not have any of this swirling. And one other point on that, I think last year it was mid-year, so it kind of became in vogue to question whether this Jazz team or front office really had a plan. I think you can fast forward to today, and while, it's not like a detailed plan with all the finish work, I think you can definitely see the framing, definitely can see the space, the size, the versatility of these guys. And it gets you excited because I do believe that, there's been a plan all along. And I think it's the only thing, if you're not winning, you're acquiring talent. And I think the Jazz have done a great job of that.
A couple numbers have jumped out to me early. Now it's preseason. There's not a lot of games that have been played, but Keontae George in his early appearances, 52% from the floor, 53% from three. His shooting numbers are a huge talking point this year, I think, for his development. But maybe the favorite number I've seen is Walker Kessler, 9.8 rebounds in just 23 minutes a game. He has not traditionally been a great rebounder. Even in college, he wasn't a great rebounder. I think that's a really good sign for him.
Yeah, I do believe that last year there were a lot of hurdles and barriers, some, maybe even self-inflicted things, comparing one year to the next. And then, I think it was pretty out in the open that Walker is a guy who's really hard on himself. And Jake and I, we talked a lot about it during the year last year. It's not uncommon to see, guys have great years and then struggle early in their career. But what I think Walker's gotten back to, and it's what we talked about on the air a ton, is if he runs the floor hard on both ends, protects the rim, and then he's added the extra bulk. Last year he was a much better rebounder in terms of his ability, his ability to carve out space. But you've always got to have that motor burning too. I think that Walker's running the floor so hard. He's doing such a great job in ball screen and protecting the rim, but he's added that extra element and, of just throwing himself around a little bit more. And I'm excited to see it because I think this year is really pivotal for him.
So as a coach, give us a couple things to keep an eye on for Taylor Hendricks specifically, and that his development is on track to being what he could be.
Well, the first thing he addressed was his body. And I think, you're a young kid coming into a man's league. You find out very quickly that I've got to look more like those guys if I'm going to be successful. And so I think he addressed that one first and foremost. look, I don't know that Taylor's ever going to be a guy who's just going to wow you with plays off the bounce. But what I have seen early is his, what I mentioned, his size has increased. He just needs to be a great defender first and foremost. And I think he still has that ability. Watching him navigate, switches and guarding smaller guys, being able to always kind of keep them in front of him. That's such a weapon. Now with the added bulk, somebody takes him down into the post. He will actually have something to say about that. I think keep it really simple for Taylor. And I think it's compete as hard as you can every night. I think number two is, when the opportunity arises, knock down that 3-point shot, because you're going to be stretched. And there's a lot of guys that can penetrate on this team and create an opportunity. Make sure you get in that gym and knock down those open opportunities, because you're going to get a bunch. And then I think the third thing is lean into what you are, and that is a defender first and foremost. I mean, he has the ability and the skill to do things that a lot of NBA guys can't. And I still believe that he's probably 2 years behind what the projected plan was for him. So, right now I think would be what he would look like, I think, with a couple of years of college under his belt. And now he can continue to kind of find, new things that he can add to his game.
Some of the other fresh names, unfortunately, like we mentioned, Isaiah Collier out with a hamstring injury. We'll see when he's available again for the Jazz, but that could be a while. He's had some bright spots. He really struggles to shoot the ball, though. He really reminds me of kind of late career Russell Westbrook, which is a ton of energy, some good playmaking, and poor scoring opportunities. What have you seen from him? What have you seen from Kyle Filipowski?
Collier, is one of those guys. The reason he will probably find a way in this league for a long time is that people cannot keep him in front. He is a free trip to the paint card almost. If there was a board game, he would be instantly to the paint. And I think that's what he brings. Now it's just understanding that and channeling it, not getting baited into taking shots you don't want to take or the team doesn't want. And then, just the education. And I would fast forward to Colin Sexton, who had a very similar capacity. But like we've said many times, it's hard when you take your first car as a Lamborghini and you're trying to figure out how to navigate the parking lot. Colin has really worked hard at being able to, rather than always lean into instinct, to understand where guys are on the floor and make proper decisions. And Isaiah's coming from a situation last year where, offense was a free-for-all. So I think it's going to be, probably mid-year. He's going to find his way, but he's got that ability. Filipowski, I tweeted this out the other night. He should just have an Olynyk 2.0 tattoo. So many of the things he does, when he gets a small on him and starts to back him down, his ability to attack a closeout, his passing and vision. Man, you can't have too many skilled big guys. I really do think the Jazz saw something that a lot of their teams missed, and I think this kid's going to be a really good player here.
Who do we like in the West this year, Coach?
Man, who do we like in the West? I always talk about the best players. I think Jokic, obviously, coming off a disappointment last year and not being able to get there. I think then you go straight to Bronny James and, what he's been able to do in his short career. No, that was
for me. I appreciate that.
That was for you.
Yep.
I mean, it's Minnesota, Denver, Oklahoma City, with, again, some aging teams that are still in the narrative because they have superstars. But I think those three teams probably, those would be the three teams that, if you're picking, probably pick one of those to be safe.
We saw an interesting video last night. I'm not sure how many people are glued into non-Utah Jazz Twitter right now, but a lot of video coming out of Dante DiVincenzo, who was with the Knicks, now playing for the Timberwolves, was facing the Knicks for the first time last night and was almost got into a fight with Jalen Brunson's dad, who is an assistant coach with the Knicks, was yelling at Tibbs while he was at the free throw line, saying this is what happens when they put you in charge. There was some bad blood there. What did you make of that trade, Karl-Anthony Towns to the Knicks, and of course Julius Randle back to Minnesota? And I guess messing with chemistry for two teams that had some of the better years they've had in a long time.
That's kind of what I think, Ben. I mean, obviously everybody likes to tinker. I don't know if this really makes either team better. I think the Minnesota really started to find themselves, and I think Towns, fought through some things and started to be a little tougher. I thought he was better last year for sure in that regard. But it's why, everybody looks at numbers and analytics and then you've got to just go with a gut feeling. But my gut feeling is what yours is. I think it's a little bit over the top. I think both teams were in a pretty good position. But the best part about it, we get to watch it kind of play out and see what happens. DiVincenzo is a really nice player for the Knicks too, and had some big games, particularly in the playoffs last year. So it will be fascinating to watch those two teams and what that kind of epicenter of that trade where it forced both of them momentum-wise.
Well, it certainly doesn't make the Knicks better than the Celtics. I mean, they've got to be far and away the front runner, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And, and then it's just, can they manage their own success? Because that is a whole other element. I was talking to somebody the other night, in fact, I've said this I say this a lot, but hype and expectations have ruined many a party. And I don't think you have to look much further than what's happened in football in the state this year. Now, Utah was basically everybody's pick to go to, the playoffs out of the Big 12. And, BYU was picked, if not dead last, second to last. And so really, Utah spent the whole offseason with all this fanfare and pressure. BYU had all of this, basically people just forgotten about them. And, the thing I love to see is when a team gets insulted or frustrated or ticked off, how do you handle it? Then when you get to the top of the mountain, Majerus used to quote our teams all the time, heavy is the head that wears the crown. And so when you get there and everybody starts thinking it's about them, it gets a little bit more difficult. So on paper and with talent, the Celtics far and away should be the team in the East. But can they handle their own success?
How's your guy, if you feel about going to the Pac-12 finally got in?
You know what? He finally got in. It's a different Pac-12, but they're in there. I chatted with him briefly after the Olympics, and for a guy who's done a lot of really cool things, he talked about that whole experience was like the essence of why he got into coaching. He just talked about just the experience to represent the country and the whole thing. But yeah, he's doing good. They are, as always, expected to be really good. And there is, considerable hype and expectation in Spokane.
Thank you, Coach. You're the best. Can't wait for the season to start. Good to see you all the time.
Yep. Sounds great, guys. Have a great show.
See you, buddy.
Coach.
There you go. Tim LaComb.
Coach Chubby.
Few's got to be stoked.
Yeah. That's going to be a fun basketball conference. I know it's not the basketball conference of old. It would have been more fun to see UCLA. And by the way, how many great Gonzaga, UCLA hardwood battles have we seen? But that'll be a fun conference.
But the Beavs and the Zags is going to be a showdown.
Yeah, a real great game.
It's going to be a showdown.
No, I'm excited. Boise State every couple of years puts together a decent basketball club. Utah State obviously is always very competitive, and we'll see what the coaches are able to continue to do there. But, yeah, we'll see.
Big thanks to Coach for jumping on with us. We'll have more next, including talking about the breaking news of the day that Cam Rising is going to be out indefinitely for the University of Utah. In fact,
that ankle?
We'll try and get you the sound if it comes across. We'll try and get that to you coming up next. So stay tuned. What do we have to get to? I'm sorry, Teton, that's right. Ethan Millard with Teton Wealth will be live in studio with Hanson Scotty today to help you with your retirement plan. Tune in or visit retireteton.com. More next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best college football coverage in Utah is on the KSL Sports Zone. Ready? It's a Friday night showdown in Provo as the Cougars square off against Oklahoma State. Your home for the best coverage of Cougar football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jacob Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Breaking news of the day, Cam Rising out indefinitely for the Utes. We'll get to the press conference coming up here momentarily. But Ben, on a very serious note, hurricanes have really hit this country hard the past few weeks. Helene in Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, and, of course, Florida with Hurricane Milton. We want to support the American Red Cross in their efforts to provide critical relief for the victims of these recent hurricanes. The Red Cross is on the ground, Ben, delivering food, shelter, and supplies to those who are hardest hit. So this is our opportunity to help our fellow Americans who've lost their homes and livelihoods due to these storms. Together, we can make a difference. Every dollar counts. Your contribution, no matter how small, can provide meals, shelter, and medical assistance to those in urgent need. All proceeds go directly to the American Red Cross to aid their hurricane recovery efforts. We've got the link out on our socials, but also redcross.org/Bonneville International, redcross.org/Bonneville International, and we could do some good, Ben.
Absolutely. You can, the link, kslsports.com, you can see it. There's a banner right there at the top. Really easy to do.
All right, time to get to the press conference. Here's Coach Witt and his weekly media availability.
Ready to roll. Okay. Tough weekend in Tempe, to say the least. I'll start out by saying that Cam Rising is out indefinitely, lower leg injury. Isaac Wilson will be our starter until further notice, and that way we don't have to address that each time we talk and let you know where it's at, and can't give you a timeline. Could be the rest of the season. I'm not sure exactly, but I know it's going to be a minute. Tough game, like I said. The positive is we got a lot of people playing really good football. We got a lot of good play going on at some positions, and our big nemesis right now is the throw game. I mean, we're just not efficient enough in the throw game. We're last in the conference in completion percentage. We're worst in the conference throwing picks. And so we gotta figure that out. And that's, our third down percentage is suffering. Our red zone is suffering. And it's really a product of not being able to be efficient enough in the throw game. We got to coach that better and put our guys in better position to succeed. And so that, if you were to say, what is the main problem with this football team? That's it right now. And like I said, we're getting a lot of good play. Proud of Dallas Vakalaki. He stepped in, true freshman, just got off a church mission, 6 months ago, and here he is playing at a very high level in a Power 4 conference, and he got his first chance to play significant snaps and really made the most of it. Defensive ends are playing well. Receiver core, very few drops, making plays when they have the opportunity. Mekhi Bernard's given us everything he's got every single week. Had another big game on Friday night. Defense as a whole is putting up really good numbers. Wasn't our best numbers of the year, but still well below what Arizona State was averaging. And so, that's really our main issue that we've got to find a way to get fixed. And again, it starts with coaching, not pointing the finger at any specific player. We got to coach better in that area. We had one punt in the game, and when you have one punt, you should score some points. But we got in the end zone one time, and so that doesn't equate. That tells you that we're moving the football, and that we're finding ways to bog down. And the field goal kicker was outstanding. Cole Becker did a great job, but typically a field goal is a consolation prize for a drive gone bad. I mean, that's what it is, unless it's end of half, end of game, game winner at the end. Typically that is a negative if you're attempting too many field goals. And so congrats to Cole for being as efficient as he has been. He's really on a good streak right now. But again, from a team perspective, that's got to change. And so we've got TCU coming in off a bye, so they'll be fresh and ready for us and hungry for a win. We know we're going to get their best shot. We feel like we get everybody's best shot, which is how it should be. I mean, we have no problem with that. But they'll be coming in here late kickoff. Again, Saturday night, 8:30, I believe, is kickoff time. They're doing some good things, particularly on offense. Well over 400 yards a game, 35-plus points a game, nearly 25 first downs. Really, what's really impressive to me is their conversion down rate, almost 50% on third down, almost 75% on fourth down, and in the red zone, they're over 80% touchdown efficient. So they're doing some really good things offensively and really difficult to stop. And so, got to work cut out for us. But again, we got to be more efficient throwing the football. In Power 4 football, at any level of football these days, you got to be able to throw the ball. Except for Little League, I guess. Maybe not in Little League. But all right, we're going to change it up this week and have Justin go last. Maybe that'll give us better mojo. So, go ahead. So just sit tight, Justin. We'll get to you. Okay. I promise.
I don't know if I'll give you better mojo, but
couldn't give us worse. He's been giving us bad mojo back there. So,
Kyle, in retrospect, did you keep Cam in the game too long? Like, what's your thoughts?
Cam is a warrior. Wanted to play. That we really moved the ball at the end of the first half and thought, okay, we're even though we didn't, get in the end zone, and then move the ball well the first drive of the second half. And Cam, we had that thought, would that be a move that we would make? But he wanted to finish, and he's a seasoned vet. He would let us know if he felt like he was not being effective enough, and so we did not make the move, and that's that. That was the decision that really our offensive coaches came to, and our coordinator and quarterback coach. So that's where we're at with that.
Kyle, given Cam's injury, he's out indefinitely, was there any conversations about potentially using that 8th-year medical redshirt waiver?
No, but there will be now. Now that we're in the situation that we're in, that's a possibility. I think. I don't know. Again, we have to explore it in detail with the compliance, and I'm not even sure Cam would be interested in going that route. He's got a lot to think about, and so just take a step back right now. Let him, get this most recent injury thoroughly diagnosed and on the road to rehab, and then that would be something we'd talk about sooner rather than later. Well, that's it. I thought we were up to Justin already. Hold tight, Justin.
Come on, Justin. Kyle, with the issues in tackling, kind of where are you finding those? What's been the biggest thing for that?
Well, the running back is very good. Scattaboo is a good back. He went over 100 yards on us, a couple big plays, a couple 50-yarders or thereabouts, and he'll make everybody, week in and week out, be a little bit suspect tackling-wise because he's just so powerful. But we did miss 19 tackles, which is far above our sweet spot of single digits. But even that said, defensively we did a lot of good things, and one thing we're not doing a good job of defensively is taking the ball away. We made a living at that through the years, being a great takeaway team that sets up the offense in short field situations. We did set the offense up inside the 30 on Junior Tafuna's pick, and also we set them up great field position with the fourth down stop, the 4th and 1 that was later in the game. But typically we do more than we've been doing with havoc plays. We call them havoc plays, sacks and takeaways, and we got to get better at that.
Coach Mekhi Bernard had a great game.
Sure did.
I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on him and what he's meant to your team this season.
He's been huge for this football team. He's been so consistent, like clockwork every week. He's averaging 6.5 yards a carry, 6 something. It's over 6 yards. Runs hard, catches the ball out of the backfield, picks up blitzes, has done everything. He's a complete back for us. The clear-cut RB1. Again, his workload really can't get much above 20 carries, which is where we try to keep him. But that's a lot of carries. I mean, I'm not saying that's a light load because that's a full day's work. You project that over the season. That's nearly 250 carries for the season. So he has been a very bright spot for us. And like I said, we got a lot of guys playing good football. The O-line in and of itself is playing good football. We had a few breakdowns on Friday night, but I challenge you to find any game where the O-line doesn't have a few breakdowns, with any team. And so they're being very consistent in their play.
follow up on that with the offensive line, Spencer Fano seems to be playing at just an elite level. What has his evolution meant to that group?
Huge, and when you're good on the edges, which is the most demanding offensive line spot is the edges. You're out on that island. You got a chance to really be good, and both him and Caleb Lomu are doing an excellent job out there. They're both only second year in the program, and you're right, Spencer is playing it at an elite level, and he's just getting better and better, and so is Caleb. So that's been a big plus. And the inside three is doing a good job too. I don't want to diminish what they're doing, but it's very demanding out there, and they're holding down the fort, to say the least.
Kyle, with the keys of the offense now handed to Isaac, what things are you looking for from him in terms of development? And with those keys, how much of that, I guess, with his improvement, would that, I guess, help him move forward, potentially being the future of this team next year?
Yeah, well, we got to try to get our completion percentage up. Like I said, we're at the bottom of the league in completion percentage, so that's job one. Actually, job one is cut down on the interceptions. You know, we've thrown 10 this year, and nobody in the league is in double digits, and so that's, you know, taking care of the football, but then more completions, and you know, Isaac does give us an element of the QB run game. You know, he's pretty adept at that, and so we just got to continue. We can't forget he's a true freshman, and no excuses, because when you're out there, you know, whoever's out there has got to get it done. But there is going to be some things that we're going to have to live with. But as long as he stays on the trajectory that he has been on, which is, we think, in the right direction, then we got a chance.
What is kind of the current midseason return on linebackers? I know obviously they've dealt with a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
And that can be part of it. But if you have maybe a report card on including the fact that they've been dealing with those injuries on the linebackers.
Yeah, I would say maybe a B-, maybe a B. C+ to B, somewhere in there. I know Lander feels like he needs to be more productive. It's coming from his mouth to me. He feels like he's got to pick it up, and he's playing hard, just leaving a few plays out there that he usually makes. John Hall has been a big plus for us, coming in and picking up some of the slack for the loss of Kareni and Sione Fotu. Both those guys have been down. We hope to get Kareni back. We'll see what happens this week. Sione maybe as well, but and we're probably 80% of the time in a 4-2 scheme, so we got only two on the field. And when we do go that third guy, it's right now it's Trey Reynolds who is the guy until we get some of those guys back. And Trey's doing a nice job. He only had like 5 or 6 snaps, but he graded out 100%. So he does a good job for us, and he's a special teams stalwart. I know that's not your question, but he's a very good special teams player right now, and I believe he's got a bright future here.
Utah and TCU had a few memorable matchups in the Mountain
Sure
West.
did.
What do you remember about that series, especially that 2008 game?
Yeah, the 2008 game was the night game. I think it was a blackout in Rice Eccles. Brian Johnson to Freddie Brown for the game winner right there towards the end. I think we'd reached the end zone one time prior to that, or maybe 0. I can't even remember. It was a low-scoring game. Was it 13-10? 13-10, something like that. And that was maybe the loudest. There's been a few isolated, well, the crowd is great always, but where it's at its peak was when we scored that touchdown. That place erupted, and that was a great game for us. It meant the championship was on the line, and we ended up obviously finishing it off with an undefeated season. But that was some great battles. I remember they boat raced us one time when I think it was game day, no game day.
I don't remember that game.
I don't either. That's right. All of a sudden, it just popped out of there. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah. Power of the Force, Star Wars. Yeah. There you go. Okay. Anyway, a lot of memorable games with the Horned Frogs, and Gary Patterson was at the helm for so many years. In fact, every one of those. And so, yeah, those stand out in your mind because they were so competitive. Excuse me.
Coach, you talked about needing more habit plays.
Yeah.
And you raved about the depth that you had at defensive end before.
Mm-hmm.
Do you start to tap into more of that depth and create more of a rotation?
Van and Logan Fano have really done a great job, and they've played, especially Van has played, I think, every snap the last 3 or 4 games since Connor O'Toole has been on the shelf. And so Paul Fitzgerald gave us a few snaps on Friday night. Maybe should have played more, but between Logan and Van, they're really doing a nice job on the edges. Van was leading the nation in sacks at some point a few games ago. He's probably not now, but they've been very steady. And if we can get Connor back, that gives us one more weapon off the edge. But we have tapped into that depth, and that's why that position has been able to stay at a consistently high level.
All right, there's Coach Witt and most of his media availability today. Of course, you heard the big news, Cam Rising out indefinitely, and Coach Witt seemed excited to not have to answer that question for a while.
I think smart to just say indefinitely.
I do too.
Don't say, we'll see if he's back next week. We'll see. No reason to play that game. Utah's sick of playing that game. It's not fair to Cam. It's certainly not fair to Isaac Wilson. It's not really fair to Andy Ludwig. You got to move on. In fact, the whole idea that they're even talking about an 8th year for Cam is insane. You got to move on. It's just, what's going to change? He's at this point, he's like a vase. Drop a vase once, you can probably glue it back together, right? Drop it 2 times, it's going to break in all the same spots, and then it's going to be hard to find those other little missing pieces. Drop it 3 times, it's not a vase anymore. Like, you've just fixed Cam too many times. It's not Cam's fault. But the reality is he's just been hurt so many times, and glued back together, he no longer holds water, and that's just where you are with him. It's too bad. It's a tragic end to one of the better quarterbacks in Utah football history, one of the better players in Utah football history. But again, you're in the injury business. This is part of the game.
All right, stay tuned. We wrap up Jake and Ben coming up next, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best college football coverage in Utah is on the KSL Sports Zone. Ready? The Utes return home to the Hill to take on an old familiar foe in TCU. Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two amigos on their ways, talking sports. They got him Matrix and also loves his tie-dye. Ben's got style with his scarf. Oh my. From the islands to the basketball courts, they may be engaging their thoughts. Jake's got wisdom beyond his years.
Jake and Ben, this segment brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free and home estimate, 801-566-1255. Also, you can win lunch from the KSL Sports Zone at Cafe Rio on Taco Tuesday. Listen to every Tuesday for your chance to win a $20 Cafe Rio gift card. Learn more about Taco Tuesday and the great deals available every week at CafeRio.com. Ben, we haven't gotten into it today, but just how bad are the Raiders? I mean, just awful.
Oh, Lloyd left.
Got steamrolled by the Steelers yesterday. Yeah. I'd like to thank them for allowing Najee Harris to run all over them.
Oh, yeah, you've got Najee.
Yeah, it really did me well.
How'd your Falcons do?
Oh, you know what's funny? Oh, the Falcons beat Carolina 38-20.
Oh, yeah, Clark Phillips had the respectable non-pick six.
But you know what's funny is Patrick Mahomes was on bye this week, so I needed a quarterback. You know who I picked up? Old Kirk Cousins.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Old 500 yards, whatever he had the other day.
So the Falcons really carried me to a victory.
Oh, good. Nice. You're cruising. You're doing well. You should have taken my guy, Caleb Williams.
Oh, Fingernails had his best game by far.
4 tutties. He's back.
Is Fingernails legit?
He is legit.
Or was he just playing against the Jaguars who admitted that they quit?
In London, those games are totally wherever they were. I don't believe in those overseas games at all. It's too weird. It throws you off. It's like midday games. It doesn't make any sense. Or early games, I should say. It's a major wrinkle to throw at these teams and say that there's any real expectations to come out of it. It's amazing how good Jordan Love is. That dude
He's
is
awesome.
So awesome.
He's so good.
Back-to-back 4 passing touchdown games. First Packer to do it since Brett Favre in 1995. Rodgers never did it. 4 touchdowns is, that's a lot. That's a lot of passing
He's
touchdowns.
such an easy guy to root for,
He's
too.
fun
Jordan
to watch.
Love is so
He
great.
makes some truly idiotic throws that find the end zone. He is really exciting.
But so did Rodgers and
yes,
Favre.
right. He's a gunslinger.
You know what's funny about the Packers is they have a game plan when it comes to quarterbacks that has worked for 30 years. Over 30 years. They've gone from one Hall of Famer to another, and I'm not saying Jordan Love has arrived, but, obviously off to a really good
pretty
start.
Darn good.
And the Packers have not – how many quarterbacks have the Browns had since 1995?
Well,
that's even the middle of Favre's run.
That's 30 seasons, so 30 quarterbacks.
At least?
Yeah, at least.
It's crazy. All these franchises that just search and search and search and search. Even the Patriots, who had Tom Brady for 20 years, have had more starting quarterbacks in that period of time than the Packers. It's amazing. And the fact that they did it basically blueprint the same way they did it with Rodgers, they did it with Love, right down to trading him to the same team. It's amazing. I'm rooting for the Packers. I think it's great. And Jordan Love has the local connection here, but if you look into his story, like Monson wrote a great column about it back when he was at Utah State. Like, this is a guy that's so easy to get behind. It's so cool.
The NFC North is disgusting. It's just stacked. That the Packers are as good as they are. They're 4-2. They're in the last place in the division right now. They're 4-2.
I still don't believe in the Bears.
Sure. I think that's fair. They're the worst of these 4 teams.
I shouldn't believe in the Vikings, but here they are winning a bunch of games.
Yeah, they're 5-0.
And I do like the Lions, I got to admit. They're easy to cheer for.
Man, that injury yesterday.
Yeah, that was rough.
That's ugly.
But what's his name? Campbell might be my favorite NFL head coach right now.
Yeah.
If you can turn around the Lions, you can turn around anybody.
Those guys totally believe in him. We'll see. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson's done for the season. That was quite grotesque with that leg break, but that they are more than just him. They've got a lot of pieces. And Goff is cooking. So, fun to watch. Cool division.
Man, I always root for Goff because I think the Rams did him dirty.
Yeah. And it was right. They won a Super Bowl. But
I know, but they could have won with him.
Yeah, they
That's
probably
the thing
could have.
is, like, everybody goes, oh, well, they severely upgraded at quarterback. That's why they won. It's like, well, he was in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he'd been there before. Right.
All right.
Might get back there.
Ben, we'll see you tomorrow, pal.
Have a great rest of your Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples of America Day.
Hanson, Scotty G are coming up next.
Thanks, Christian.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.